Welcome to the 4th episode of League of Liars. Winn here, as we begin our journey into part 1 of our look into the NFL. Yes, part 1, because the NFL is so steeped in corruption and greed, I couldn't fit it into a single episode. Well, I could, but it would be really long. Anyways, let's recap our last episode. Episode 1, we learned about how franchises work. Episode 2, we learned about the venerable threshold. And in Episode 3, we learned about how corporations have become more of an importance than die-hard fans. And in Episode 4 today, we will learn a lot. So strap in, and let's begin part 1 of this in-depth analysis. The Minnesota North is cold and unforgiving. After losing the Lakers in the 1960s, which, to dig the knife even deeper, is one of the most cherished franchises in sports, and losing the North Stars a while back as well, it's no wonder this town is on the brink of a collapse. So much so, it caused this spectacle to occur. Yes, the Metrodome in downtown Minneapolis succumbed to the snow that towered above it, and the roof collapsed and ripped from the sheer weight of all that packed snow. Being an air-supported roof is not exactly a durable solution from an architect standpoint. So here we are, the first time we have a stadium issue where a stadium genuinely needs to be replaced. However, then we get into the real meat of this tortured franchise, Mr. Wilf. The dude looks like Waluigi's drunk, abusive father, and to his credit, his actions and attitudes suggest that he is a not-so-nice personality. The threat of moving the team to Los Angeles was the real deal, and Los Angeles is a city that will be talked about plenty in our NFL segments. This is because Los Angeles was without an NFL team from the late 90s to the mid-2010s. So during that time frame, any team was fair game on the relocation rumors. So, the franchise, to the pleases of many, stayed with an official plan for a new stadium, a fixed dome too, which is rather odd for the NFL. Open-air stadiums are dying off, and in suit, retractable stadiums like we mentioned in Episode 1 are becoming more of a norm. However, Minnesota was able to get a fixed dome likely because of the cold climate of Minnesota. Now let's get the fun stuff out. Who foots the bill? Yep, you do. How about a nice surcharge of $500 million? For the Twin City population, they were actually willing to shell this out to keep their team. Despite the absolute lunacy of Minnesota's government officials, there is an issue with the stadium already. Look at the stadium. A lot of the construction uses glass windows to help those inside see outdoors. It gives it an open air feel. Well, apparently this glass is so transparent that birds fly directly into the stadium glass and die. This was even mentioned during the planning of the stadium. People said, hey, this is a risk that you're taking and it could end very badly. And they ignored it. Now they are backtracking, trying to fix the problem that their stadium is directly on a bird migration route. It's basically killing birds faster than they are killing Vikings fans' dreams. Skull indeed. Valhalla awaits your debts, Minnesotans. Ohio is far from perfect. The Cleveland Browns need no explanation, and we will get to them in the next one, so don't worry. The Reds, Ohio State fans, yeah, it's something. But the Cincinnati Bengals are a special breed. Decades upon decades of terrible play on the field, ruining golden opportunities. So let's not beat around the bush for long. Longtime owner Mike Brown is stubborn in his ways. He refuses to make the changes that need to be done. such as keeping Marvin Lewis for years on end, but his specialty was how he hooked the Cincy government into funding his new shrine, Paul Brown Stadium, named after the original founder of the Bengals franchise. The stadium was going to be mostly public funded. Yes, you should be used to that at this point. I mean, it is a pretty recurring theme. Billionaires couldn't possibly afford to finance these stadiums alone, clearly. Well, the stadium was built, but it came out that there were some unique clauses to this deal. 1. First, it states, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if the majority of the NFL has some sort of feature in their stadiums, the Bengals must have it, must by public funds. And there was one specific clause in there as well that said, again paraphrasing, that when a new technology like holographic replay is invented, the Bengals must get it. But the thing is, holographic replays haven't even been invented yet, but it's in the contract. It doesn't help that the team has struggled for years and will continue to do so. That means things like selling the public hospital, delaying payments for city schools. The yearly budget has a big percentage just for the stadiums. And it will continue with these payments for several more years. If you thought Ohio couldn't get it worse, well, don't worry, they can. As we take a tour up north on the coast of Erie to the Factory of Sadness. Ah, brown. Such a sickening color. Like the Cleveland Browns, a team so terrible that they are without a doubt the best at being the worst. A quick history of this tortured franchise. Playing Cleveland for decades on end, then this jerk known as Art Modell, remember him? Well, the law he was named after in our previous episode about the crew, it was basically because he, overnight, announced the team's relocation out of nowhere. And with another month of football left, the team still had home games to play in Cleveland. And the crowd was angry. Oh, and don't forget about all those controversies that the team has had. You know, Bottlegate, having players making idiotic choices almost non-stop. That is the story of this team. The perfect blend of bad player decisions, bad trading, poor coaching, terrible management, and oblivious ownership. With all this, it's no wonder they've struggled so much. Since their second iteration, only one playoff appearance, and they lost it, and an 0-16 record in 2017. Great. Things have gotten slightly better, but when the team has had only one playoff appearance in its second iteration, it makes you wonder what is going through the owner's head. There's got to be some hope somewhere, and there is. The current team with Baker Mayfield and OBJ, they could make some serious noise for once. There is actual hope in Cleveland. Who am I kidding? It's gonna end in failure, isn't it? Well, crikey, mate. It's time to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. This team has been kind of an oddball from the get-go, as Jacksonville isn't really as popular as other non-NFL cities, San Antonio and Salt Lake, for examples. And the team has not had a whole lot of success or fan following. No Super Bowl appearances, and only 3 AFC Championship games. Other than that, there isn't much else to see in this squad. However, there is one thing that distincts themselves from every other NFL team or sports team in general, and that is London. That's right, London as in the United Kingdom and Great Britain. Now you may be wondering, what on earth does London have to do with football in Florida? Well, every year the NFL usually has 1 or 2 games in the United Kingdom, specifically London's Wembley Stadium. It was an incentive by the NFL to get the United Kingdom interested in American football. Interested? More like world domination, I'd say. I'm not joking. If they could control a worldwide football league, I bet they would be all for it. The connection between the Jags and London is, when those London games occur, the Jaguars are usually playing in them. Jacksonville has played in several of these London games, and with the NFL eyeing a potential European team, or if they're crazy enough, a European league, it makes the Jags look like the first and best choice. They even have a UK Instagram for all of the British fans. As of right now, they are guaranteed to be staying in Jacksonville for some time, but the concerns are starting to arise. It will be interesting to see going forward, or else Jacksonville might have to say tally-ho to their team. And this also adds another question. What about the logistics? Think about it. Players in that same division will have to fly to London at least once per season, maybe even more. Imagine the jet lag, the costs of travel, and more. The NFL could afford this, but we all know they will not throw a team across the pond unless it passes their gold standard. And that standard being profitable and help spread American football to a global conquering, global influence. Buffalo is a forgotten one, always overshadowed by their Long Island brothers. The Bills team, along with their fans, and mostly everything about the team and city, is old-fashioned. The stadium isn't very modern. The team has a more college student section kind of fan base. And if you are a table, then I'm sorry for you. Well, New Era Field, nice name, is such an eyesore according to these moronic NFL execs who think that the newest iPhone, XR Plus, Touch, whatever, is always outdated. Buffalo seems to be the butt joke of the NFL. Nobody wants to play there. Antonio Brown was almost traded there, but he flat out said that he refused to play for the Bills. Mr. Pagula owns the god-awful Bills and the god-awful Sabres. He seems to not understand the situation at hand. The NFL is more than ready to ship the Bills to a new city. The NFL is seemingly unashamed at the fact that they almost hate some cities, and Buffalo, sadly, is one of these victims. Mr. Pagula seems to have his work cut out for him. The man is the reason the Bills didn't move earlier in the decade, but he's also the main piece holding the franchise back. Like the Milwaukee Bucks, the NFL is basically forcing the Bills into either getting a totally new football stadium or leaving for another city. There have been sketches and concept designs, but there is no official plan in place yet. I will hold out a hand and support those cold brothers up north. To me, Buffalo Stadium is an East Coast Lambeau Field. It has a charm of uniqueness that passes that final point of the venerable threshold. A $1.4 billion stadium is not the answer to your problems, guys. I believe the best answer is small renovations and general upkeep of the current stadium. Embrace your college persona, because it's the saving grace of your tainted organization. San Francisco, California's Portland, and I don't mean it in a good way. Forgetting the pure classlessness of Giants fans in the ye old Steve Young and Jerry Rice and Joe Montana days, this is about now, and this team is a joke. But if you want to know the best time of this collapse, it would be the 2013 NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks, better known as the game where "Don't you ever talk about me." That game was the beginning of this tragic downfall. The 49ers went into the 2013 season seeking revenge after losing in the Super Bowl the year prior, a comeback that fell just short and needed to be avenged. Well, that was the beginning of the nosedive, from almost Super Bowl champions to a pathetic, tanking display. Now here's the issue with the 49ers, like seemingly everyone here, stadium issues. They currently play in Levi's Stadium. At first glance, it looks pretty cool. But here's one issue. This thing called the sun. There is zero shade anywhere. And contrary to popular belief, California is not 365 days of sunny and 70 degrees. It can get hot, like really hot. And not having shade can kind of suck. Oh, and you won't be able to access any sort of social media for posting your ugly selfies because the Wi-Fi has almost no coverage in the area. I'm guessing they run on Sprint. The other issue is, they don't even play in San Francisco anymore. They play in Santa Clara, which is an entirely different county from San Francisco. Levi's Stadium is only 9 miles away from downtown San Jose, while downtown San Francisco is over an hour by car from that stadium. And people, they are already realizing that this whole ordeal was a mistake. It's at a point where I would not be surprised to see them in a new stadium within 2035. That sounds like a far way a ways, but that's just 16 years from now. Who knows? The Bears, a supposed franchise of great history. In recent years, it's better known for being crap. They were so consistent at being bad, it was about as commonplace as Cody Parker's missed field goals. But more to the point, the two things with the Bears are the stadium they are currently in and the matriarch ownership of the McCaskies. First off, the home turf. Soldier Field is without a doubt one of the greatest historical landmarks in American sports. That is, until the latest renovation. The old Soldier Field was completely scrapped, completely removed, and I can assume an extraterrestrial spacecraft landed there because, oh my god, what in the name of football is that? A hideous looking stadium sitting on top of a tribute to America's men and women that sacrificed their lives for our freedom. If they built the stadium on its own, no big deal, but with the Soldier Field architecture, it looks weird and out of place. This leads us to number 2, the McCaskies. The matriarch of this franchise has had an intense grip of power and she refuses to let go. However, she is not our main suspect. It's the other McCaskies. They do not seem to grasp how to run a franchise. Actually, they just seem eager to switch things up when the slightest thing goes wrong. That's not exactly a sign of confidence, and if this keeps up, expect the Bears to struggle for years to come, even with successful seasons here and there. As for your future, it looks about as ugly as your Area 51 inspired home grounds. Oh, and Trubisky is not going to save you. And I want to finish this piece off with a rather sad reality for Chicago fans. Blackhawks, they're not good anymore. The Cubs, they're starting to fall down. The Bulls, Derrick Rose is gone, so Bears are your best hope. And that's horrifying. Oh, Jerry. Sometimes I wonder when you'll take off your headphones and realize what you're doing. Oh, but that's right. Your ego is about as big as your stadium. The so-called America's team is run by this sad sack known as Jerry Jones. The Dallas Cowboys are definitely popular. There's no doubt about it. But Jerry Jones is someone who shouldn't be anywhere near a sports franchise. Mainly because he has an ego that rivals Texas itself. The dude is just... where do you even begin? Well, let's start with the stadium. Despite the many amenities, and the world-class attention to detail, I can't help but look at the outside and think it's some sort of cyber center for future football technology. But the issue here is Jones. A man with a net worth of almost $7 billion went for the public money route. But that isn't even his worst offense. It's the fact that he is really the leader of the NFL. Roger Goodell is not the true head honcho of the league. Jerry Jones is. Every major action in the past 20 years by the NFL has had his fingerprints all over it. Relocations? He was one of the leaders behind them. New deals and agreements? Jerry Jones as well. This man is a textbook definition of supreme overlord. The problem is, Roger Goodell technically owns that title, and Jerry wants it. His answer? A bloodless coup. Now, we all remember when Jerry Jones openly came out saying, "I'm gonna try to get Roger Goodell out of here." But, because this is Jerry Jones, he has to tell every single person, every single news agency, everyone in the world about it. He tried to start this revolution against Goodell, and he failed with pure humiliation. And we haven't even scratched the surface on this guy. His entire tenure as the Cowboys owner is nothing but pure embarrassment. He is not only the owner, but also the GM of the team. And he made some pretty bad decisions in his past, and even now in the present, they have hindered his own franchise from achieving glory. Perhaps that is for the better, though. Last thing we all need is the arrogance of the Dallas Cowboys fan base. Now, I'm going to stop here. It would be easy to ramble about his lunacy for another 20 minutes, but we must get through others on this list. If you ever want to know how annoying he can be, just find any video with his name on it, and you will quickly understand. And for our final story today, we will be looking at a team that is always finding itself in the spotlight, the Washington Redskins. Yes, we all know about the controversy about the Redskins slur team name, and we will get to that in a second. But first, let's look at the owner, Dan Snyder. He must be a part-time comedian because all his actions are so pathetic that it's just laughable. Everything is something that can be profited off of, and the talent on the field is the same. Chuck money at everyone and everything. And here's another fun fact, he's trying to get a new stadium built off of the old RFK, where the MLS DC team played, and trying to get this nice, shiny new complex just like everybody else. But apparently, they're not going to allow that. There are certain groups who will not let Dan Snyder move this team onto the actual DC land. And why is that? Well, that brings us into our main story. Here we go. This is where the real war begins. The name. Redskins. Now, we are not going to focus on the whole aspect of controversial names in sports, and we're not going to decide if one is correct or the other. We're going to look at this issue with the Redskins team through an unbiased perspective. So here's the backstory to this. Originally, the team was named the Braves when they were in Boston. Then owner George Preston was moving his football team into Fenway Park, where the Boston Braves baseball team played along with the Red Sox. So in order to help prevent the confusion, he renamed the team to the Boston Redskins. This kept the Native American identity of the Braves, but with a new name. And as time progressed, the team moved to the DC area. And in this long span of time, there were many lows, but there were also many highs, including Super Bowl wins. But the elephant in the room was still there, the name. Massive protests began, calling for the name to be replaced. Those on both sides of the debate had their reasons. Those who wanted it changed saw the word as a racial slur that is demeaning to Native American people. Those who wanted the name kept saw the wood as a symbol of pride and empowerment for those same native people. In the end, though, it was nothing more than people trying to desperately push personal narratives and agendas. During this whole issue, Snyder did almost nothing, which is kind of a smart thing to do. You don't want to throw yourself into the crossfires of a nationwide controversy. Oh, wait, no, never mind, he did. Never, in all caps, is what he said. He will never change the name. But the problem with this level of stupidity is that he uses it for all other aspects of the team, meaning that the franchise will continue to be disastrous and ruinous for almost anything that Snyder's hands touch. Many advocacy groups will not allow this project to take off unless Snyder changes the name. No developments have been finalized yet, so this would be the equivalent of point F on the venerable threshold. And I will finish off this story with this statement. People are too busy focusing on the name when they really should be focusing on Dan Snyder. Yes, you may have your own personal opinion about the name, but if you want any chance of that being changed, Dan Snyder needs to go. Even if you like the name, Dan Snyder leaving will make everyone happier with the fan base. So maybe we could all come together just for this one time. Try to find someone who's willing to treat the Redskins franchise right. We have reached the end of this episode, and despite this, there are many teams that I actually did not cover. Most, if not all, NFL franchises have had some sort of wrongdoing or major controversy that blackens their reputation. And remember, this is only part 1 of the NFL. When the next episode releases, we will finish our coverage on these teams and this corrupt league. As always, my name is Davis Winn, and I leave you with this quote from Dr. T.P. Chia. It is possible to satisfy your need. It is impossible to satisfy your greed.